The climate war just went nuclear, and what I'm about to reveal will make your blood boil. While you're struggling to pay your electricity bills and wondering why your power costs keep skyrocketing, Climate Change Minister Chris Bowen is sitting in his Canberra bubble, deliberately ignoring evidence that could save Australian families billions of dollars. Sky News powerhouse Andrew Bolt has just dropped the most devastating expose of government incompetence and ideological blindness that will leave you questioning everything you've been told about Australia's energy future. This isn't just political point scoring, this is about a minister who's allegedly closed his ears to critical data while your hard-earned tax dollars disappear into what Bolt calls dud green schemes faster than water down a drain. We're talking about $2.3 billion in battery subsidies alone, money that could have gone to hospitals, schools, or infrastructure that actually works, but instead it's being funneled into the pockets of renewable energy companies while your power bills continue to climb. Bolt's latest attack isn't just criticism, it's a full-scale demolition of Bowen's credibility that exposes how ideology has completely overtaken evidence-based policy making in this country. The veteran commentator has been tracking government spending like a forensic accountant, and what he's discovered will shock you to your core: billions upon billions of taxpayer dollars being thrown at unproven technology while families across Australia struggle to keep their lights on. Here's what the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. Andrew Bolt has been methodically building a case against Chris Bowen that reveals a pattern of willful ignorance so egregious it borders on negligence. While Bowen preaches about climate emergencies and renewable energy salvation, Bolt's been examining the actual data, the inconvenient truths that don't fit the government's narrative but could fundamentally change how we approach energy policy in this country. The $2.3 billion battery subsidy that's got Bolt fired up isn't just another government handout, it's a symbol of everything wrong with Labor's approach to energy policy. These aren't investments in proven technology, these are taxpayer-funded experiments with your money while you're paying through the nose for electricity that should be getting cheaper, not more expensive. Bolt's pointing out what should be obvious: we're subsidizing technology that hasn't proven its worth while penalizing reliable energy sources that actually keep the lights on. But here's where Bolt's criticism gets absolutely devastating, and this is the part that should terrify every Australian taxpayer. The minister responsible for energy policy is allegedly refusing to consider evidence that contradicts his predetermined agenda. We're not talking about minor policy disagreements here, we're talking about a complete breakdown of evidence-based governance where ideology trumps facts every single time. Bolt's accusation that Bowen has closed his ears to climate emergency data isn't just about one minister's stubbornness, it's about a systematic failure of government accountability that's costing Australians billions. When policymakers decide what the evidence should say before they look at it, you get exactly what we're seeing: renewable energy policies that sound great in press releases but deliver questionable results in the real world. The specific trigger for Bolt's latest broadside appears to be the government's battery subsidy program, but this is just the tip of an iceberg that gets more frightening the deeper you dive. These subsidies aren't isolated incidents, they are part of a comprehensive strategy to transform Australia's energy system using your money while ignoring any data that suggests this transformation might be economically disastrous or technically unworkable. What makes Bolt's criticism so powerful is his focus on the money trail. While politicians talk in abstracts about renewable energy futures and climate action, Bolt's tracking the dollars and cents that come out of your pocket to fund these grand experiments. The $2.3 billion for batteries is real money that could have been spent on proven infrastructure or returned to taxpayers through lower taxes. Here's what's really infuriating about this whole situation: Bowen and his department aren't just spending your money on questionable projects, they are celebrating it. Bolt highlighted how the Prime Minister boasts about these handouts as if giving away taxpayer money to renewable energy companies is some kind of achievement rather than a fundamental betrayal of fiscal responsibility. The pattern Bolt's identified is absolutely chilling when you think about its implications. Government ministers decide what policies they want to implement based on political considerations, then they ignore any evidence that might challenge those predetermined conclusions. This isn't evidence-based policy making, this is ideology-based spending, using your money to fund someone else's political fantasies. Bolt's broader point about Bowen's alleged refusal to consider contrary evidence taps into something much deeper than energy policy disagreements. This is about the quality of democratic governance in Australia and whether our elected officials are actually interested in finding the best solutions for complex problems or just implementing policies that make them feel good about themselves. The economic implications of what Bolt's describing are staggering. When you ignore evidence about policy effectiveness, you inevitably waste massive amounts of money on programs that don't deliver their promised benefits. The battery subsidies are just one example. Multiply this across the entire renewable energy sector and you're looking at tens of billions of dollars in potentially wasted expenditure. What's particularly galling about Bowen's alleged approach is how it treats Australian taxpayers as ATMs for green energy experiments. These aren't careful, measured investments in proven technology. These are massive gambles with your money based on ideological commitments rather than rigorous analysis. When ministers close their ears to inconvenient data, taxpayers pay the price through higher costs and poorer outcomes. Bolt's criticism also highlights the foreign ownership dimension that should concern every Australian. Many of these renewable energy companies receiving taxpayer subsidies are foreign-owned, which means Australian tax dollars are essentially being transferred to overseas investors while Australian families struggle with rising energy costs. This isn't just poor policy, it's economic madness. The veteran commentator's focus on Bowen's alleged ideological blindness reflects broader conservative frustrations with how climate policy is debated in Australia. When ministers decide that questioning climate policies is automatically illegitimate, they create an environment where bad policies can't be challenged and waste becomes inevitable. Here's what makes this story so explosive. Bolt isn't just criticizing policy outcomes, he's questioning the fundamental integrity of the decision-making process. When ministers allegedly ignore evidence that contradicts their preferred narratives, they are betraying their responsibility to make informed decisions on behalf of the Australian people. The specific nature of Bolt's criticism about climate emergency data suggests there's compelling information available that contradicts the government's claims about environmental urgency and renewable energy effectiveness. This could include temperature records that don't show accelerating warming, extreme weather data that doesn't support catastrophe narratives, or economic analyses showing that renewable energy policies are actually increasing rather than decreasing energy costs. What's particularly damaging about Bolt's attack is how it exposes the gap between government rhetoric and reality. While Bowen talks about climate emergencies and renewable energy benefits, the actual evidence might tell a very different story, one of questionable climate data and renewable energy policies that cost more and deliver less than promised. The economic focus of Bolt's criticism cuts to the heart of why this matters for ordinary Australians. While politicians play ideological games with energy policy, real families are paying real money for electricity that keeps getting more expensive despite billions in subsidies supposedly designed to make it cheaper. This isn't just policy failure, it's a betrayal of the basic promise that government spending should benefit the people who fund it. Bolt's tracking of government spending reveals a pattern that should alarm every taxpayer: massive expenditures on renewable energy programs with questionable benefits while reliable, affordable energy sources are penalized through regulation and taxation. This isn't just poor resource allocation, it's systematic destruction of Australia's energy advantage. The international dimension of this controversy adds another layer of concern. While Australia spends billions on renewable energy subsidies, other countries are focusing on reliable, affordable energy sources that give them competitive advantages in global markets. Bowen's alleged refusal to consider contrary evidence could be putting Australia at a permanent economic disadvantage. What makes Bolt's criticism so devastating is how it personalizes the policy failures. This isn't just about abstract government waste, it's about specific decisions by a specific minister to ignore evidence that could save Australian families money on their electricity bills. When you put names and faces on policy failures, accountability becomes unavoidable. The battery subsidy program that triggered Bolt's latest attack represents everything wrong with Labor's approach to energy policy. Instead of letting markets determine which technologies succeed based on their actual performance, the government's picking winners and losers using taxpayer money while ignoring evidence about which approaches actually work. Here's what should terrify every Australian about this story: if Bolt's allegations are accurate, then our energy policies are being driven by ideology rather than evidence, which means the massive spending on renewable energy could be delivering far less benefit than promised while imposing far higher costs than necessary. This isn't just government waste, it's potential economic sabotage funded by your tax dollars. The broader implications of Bolt's criticism extend far beyond energy policy. When ministers allegedly close their ears to inconvenient evidence, it undermines the entire foundation of democratic governance. How can voters make informed decisions if their elected representatives won't consider information that challenges their predetermined positions? Bolt's methodical approach to tracking government spending and policy outcomes provides a template for holding politicians accountable in ways that go beyond traditional political rhetoric. By focusing on dollars and cents rather than abstract policy debates, is forcing ministers like Bowen to defend their spending decisions with concrete evidence rather than ideological assertions. The climate policy debate that Bolt's criticism highlights isn't really about environmental science, it's about economic reality and whether Australia can afford to continue spending billions on renewable energy programs that may not deliver their promised benefits. When ministers allegedly ignore evidence about policy effectiveness, they are gambling with the country's economic future using your money as the stake. If you thought tonight's story was wild, trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. So don't stop now. Click on the video right here on your screen to continue the chaos, the drama, and the inside scoop only we deliver. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and join the Australian News CC family where the real stories come to life. See you in the next one.